My brother's wedding planner called. Your family canceled your invitation but asked to keep the $50,000 deposit you paid. I said cancel the entire wedding. The call came Tuesday morning while I was editing a commercial in my home studio. This is Renee from Perfect Day Planning calling about Jared's wedding next month. Her voice sounded uncomfortable. I have some difficult news. Your family contacted us yesterday and asked us to remove you from the guest list entirely. They mentioned some family disagreements and said you wouldn't be welcome at the ceremony or reception. I paused my editing software. My family still sees me as the 9-year-old college dropout who threw his life away to become a freelance videographer. What they don't know is what I actually do with all that video equipment filling my garage. However, Renee continued nervously. They also specifically requested to keep the $50,000 deposit you paid for the wedding videography package. Mrs. Ruth said the family had already allocated those funds to other wedding expenses and couldn't possibly return them. I leaned back in my chair, looking at the wall of awards behind me. Emmy nominations, industry recognition, contracts with Fortune 500 companies. My little video hobby had quietly become a $15 million production company over the past 8 years. Renee, I need to ask you something important. What's the name of your wedding venue? The Riverside Manor downtown. And who owns that property? I heard papers shuffling on her end. It's listed under Sunset Holdings LLC. Right. What about your catering company? Golden Plate Catering Services. Also owned by Sunset Holdings LLC as well. Wait, what's going on here? The photography studio, handling the wedding photos. Elite Moment Studio. Oh my God, that's also Sunset Holdings. The florist providing all the arrangements. Bella's Garden Creations? That's you too, isn't it? The DJ company. The luxury transportation service. The rehearsal dinner venue. Even the hotel block for out-of-town guests. All owned by Sunset Holdings LLC, which is my company. Renee's voice went up an octave. Mr. Ruth, are you telling me that you own every single vendor for this wedding? I'm telling you that for the past 8 months, I've been secretly funding my brother's entire dream wedding through shell companies I created. Every vendor, every service, every single detail of this wedding. All paid for by me through different LLCs, so my family wouldn't know their disappointment son was actually footing the entire bill for everything. This can't be happening. When I dropped out of film school 7 years ago, my parents told everyone I was throwing my life away while they focused on Jared's safe marketing career at his corporate job. I was quietly building a production empire, corporate videos, national commercials, award-winning documentaries. I work with Netflix, HBO, major advertising agencies, but to my family, I'm still just the failure who plays with cameras. Sir, what exactly are you saying? I'm saying cancel everything. The venue rental, catering contract, floral arrangements, photography package, DJ services, transportation, all of it. Every single contract goes through companies I own. But sir, the wedding is in 3 weeks. There are 180 confirmed guests coming. Then they better start making phone calls fast. I want every vendor canceled by close of business today. Send the Ruth and Miller families a complete itemized bill showing exactly what I was covering. The $75,000 venue rental, the $45,000 catering package, the $15,000 floral arrangements, everything. They can keep my original videography deposit since they clearly don't want me recording their special day. After hanging up, I sat staring at my editing monitors. 8 years of secretly supporting my family's big events while they treated me like I couldn't manage my own finances. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Martin, we've decided you're not a positive influence. We're keeping your contribution since we've already spent it. Don't contact Jared. I typed back. Understood. Hope you find a venue by Saturday. My accountant called within the hour. Her voice panicked in a way I'd never heard before. Martin, we have a massive problem. Those shell companies you created? Someone filed simultaneous lawsuits against all 17 of them for breach of contract. I felt my chest tighten. The legal fees alone will be catastrophic. But here's the worst part. Whoever did this knew exactly how to structure the suits to freeze all your business accounts pending investigation. I pulled up my banking app and watched in real time as every account showed restricted access. You have about 48 hours before payroll for your 60 employees is due, and you currently can't access a single dollar. She paused. Martin, your entire company is about to collapse, and I just found out who filed the suits. Who? I asked, though part of me already knew. Your brother's fiancée, Tessa Miller. She's a corporate attorney. Apparently she specializes in business litigation. And Martin, she didn't just file randomly. Every single lawsuit targets a specific vulnerability in how you structured the LLCs. She knew exactly what she was doing. I sat there processing this. Tessa, Jared's fiancée of 2 years. The woman I'd met exactly 3 times at family dinners where she barely acknowledged my existence. She was the one systematically destroying my company. How is this even possible? I set those companies up carefully. She must have had access to your corporate documents somehow. The lawsuits cite specific operating agreements, formation dates, registered agent information. This wasn't public record stuff, Martin. Someone gave her internal documents. My mom. I said it out loud before I even finished the thought. 6 months ago, Mom had asked to borrow my office for a virtual doctor's appointment because her internet was down. I'd said yes without thinking about it. She'd been alone in there for almost 2 hours. What? Mom was in my office unsupervised for 2 hours back in March. All my corporate documents are in the filing cabinet. I never lock it because it's my home office. Why would I? My accountant was quiet for a moment. Martin, if that's true, we're talking about premeditated corporate sabotage. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment revenge for canceling the wedding. They've been planning this for months. My hands started shaking. But why? What's the endgame here? I don't know yet, but I'm calling our litigation attorney right now. Don't talk to anyone in your family. Don't respond to any messages. And Martin, you need to physically go to your banks first thing tomorrow morning and try to sort this out in person. Sometimes a face-to-face conversation can expedite things. I hung up and just sat there in my home studio, surrounded by $500,000 worth of video equipment, multiple Emmy nominations on the wall, and the growing realization that my family hadn't just uninvited me from a wedding, they'd tried to destroy everything I'd built. My phone rang. Jared. I let it go to voicemail. Then Mom called. Then Dad. Then Jared again. I turned my phone off and opened my laptop. I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with. The lawsuits had been filed in 3 different jurisdictions, which was smart. It meant I'd need separate legal representation in each location, tripling my legal costs. Each suit claimed breach of contract for the wedding services, but the amounts were insane. The venue lawsuit claimed $275,000 in damages. The catering suit wanted $198,000. The photography, florals, DJ, transportation, each one claiming damages that were 5 to 10 times what the actual contracts were worth. This wasn't about getting their wedding back. This was about burying me financially. I started going through my email, searching for anything from Tessa. There were 3 emails, all from 8 months ago when Jared first told the family about the engagement. Standard nice to meet you, looking forward to getting to know you better type messages. Nothing that seemed suspicious. Then I searched my deleted folder. That's where I found it. An email from 5 months ago that I'd apparently deleted without reading. The subject line was, "Quick question about your business structure." It was from an address I didn't recognize, but when I opened it, the signature was Tessa Miller, Senior Associate, Whitmore and Chang LLP. Martin, Jared mentioned you run several production companies, and I'm actually working on a case involving similar business structures. Would you mind if I picked your brain sometime? I'd love to understand how you manage multiple LLCs under one umbrella. Maybe we could grab coffee? I'd deleted it thinking it was spam or a networking request I didn't have time for. Now I realized it was reconnaissance. She'd been trying to get information directly from me, and when that didn't work, she'd gotten my mom to steal my documents. I took screenshots of everything and emailed them to my attorney, then to my accountant. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my older sister, Vanessa. Vanessa had moved to Portland 6 years ago, specifically to get away from family drama. She'd been the first one to tell me that dropping out of film school to pursue videography wasn't crazy. She'd also been the one who warned me that Mom and Dad would never see me as successful no matter what I accomplished. She answered on the 3rd ring. Martin, is everything okay? No. I need to tell you something, and I need you to not tell Mom and Dad that we talked. I explained everything. The wedding cancellation, discovering I owned all the vendors, the lawsuits, the frozen accounts, Tessa's involvement, Mom stealing my documents. Vanessa listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Jared called me 2 weeks ago. He wanted to know if I'd be willing to invest in some kind of business opportunity. Said he and Tessa were starting a video production company and needed capital. I told him I wasn't interested. My blood went cold. They're trying to steal my company. Not steal it, Martin. Replace it. Think about it. They destroy your business through legal fees and frozen assets. You're forced to sell off equipment and client contracts to stay afloat. Then they swoop in with their new company, pick up your former clients, maybe even hire some of your employees who need work. And to Mom and Dad, Jared looks like the successful son who finally made something of himself in the video production industry. That's insane. Who does that? Our family, apparently. Vanessa's voice was tired. Martin, I love Mom and Dad, but they've always been obsessed with the idea that Jared is the golden child and you're the screw-up. I think Tessa saw an opportunity to leverage that. She gets to destroy a competitor, help her fiancé start a business, and look like a hero to her future in-laws all at once. What do I do? First, you document everything. Second, you call the FBI. The FBI? Martin, this is wire fraud, conspiracy, possibly RICO violations if we can prove Mom was knowingly involved in a scheme to destroy your business. This isn't just a family dispute anymore. This is serious federal crime territory. I hadn't thought about it that way. I'd been so focused on the business logistics that I hadn't considered the criminal aspect. I have a friend who's a federal prosecutor in Seattle. Let me make some calls. In the meantime, you need to go completely dark with the family. No calls, no texts, no emails. Let your attorney handle all communication. What about the wedding? What about it? Let them try to scramble for vendors with 3 weeks' notice. You've got bigger problems. She was right. I thanked her and hung up, then turned my phone back on. 63 missed calls, 47 text messages. I didn't read any of them. Instead, I opened my laptop and started pulling together every piece of documentation I had. Corporate formation documents, bank statements, emails, the timeline of Mom's office visit, everything. If this was going to be a legal battle, I was going to be prepared. At midnight, I was still working when my doorbell rang. I pulled up the security camera feed. Jared was standing on my porch. I didn't open the door. Instead, I turned on the porch microphone. Whatever you need to say, you can say it through the camera. Jared looked up at the camera, surprised. Martin, come on. We need to talk about this. Talk to my attorney. This is ridiculous. You're really going to destroy your own brother's wedding over some petty grudge? You uninvited me and tried to steal my money. Then your fiancé filed fraudulent lawsuits to destroy my company. So yeah, the wedding's canceled. And Jared, if you don't leave my property in the next 30 seconds, I'm calling the police. You've always been selfish. Mom was right about you. 30 seconds. He left, but not before kicking my mailbox hard enough to dent it. I got that on camera too. The next morning, I was at my primary bank when they opened at 9. The branch manager, a woman named Gloria, who I'd worked with for 4 years, saw me and immediately came over. Mr. Ruth, I was going to call you today. We have a situation with your business accounts. I know. I need to speak with someone about getting the freeze removed. These lawsuits are fraudulent. Gloria led me to a private office. I'm glad you came in. The freeze is standard procedure when litigation is filed, but I've been reviewing your accounts and something doesn't add up. These lawsuits claim you have outstanding debts to these companies, but your account history shows regular payments to all of them. There's no evidence of breach of contract from your end. Exactly, because there is no breach. My brother's fiancée is an attorney and she's filing false claims to destroy my business. I have documentation. I spent 2 hours with Gloria and the bank's legal team, walking them through everything. By noon, they'd agreed to lift the freeze on my operational accounts while keeping my personal savings protected. It wasn't a complete solution, but it meant I could make payroll. My litigation attorney called while I was driving home. Martin, we've got a problem. Tessa Miller filed for emergency restraining orders in all 3 jurisdictions, claiming you've been threatening her and your family. The hearings are scheduled for tomorrow morning at 9, 10, and 11, respectively. That's impossible. I'd have to be in 3 different cities simultaneously. That's the point. She's trying to get default judgments. If you don't show up to contest the restraining orders, they get granted automatically. Then she can use those orders as evidence that you're unstable and dangerous, which strengthens her breach of contract claims. This is insane. Can we get the hearings consolidated? I'm trying, but I'm not optimistic. She filed in jurisdictions that don't have reciprocal agreement for consolidating hearings. You're going to need to prioritize which one to attend in person. We can try to handle the others by phone or video, but that's not ideal. Which one has the biggest financial impact? The venue suit. That's the one claiming $275,000 in damages. If she wins that, the others will likely follow. Then that's the one I attend. What do I need to bring? Everything. Every email, every contract, every payment record, every piece of evidence you have. And Martin, I need you to understand something. Tessa is very good at her job. She wouldn't be filing these suits if she didn't think she could win. We need to be prepared for this to get much worse before it gets better. I spent the rest of the day preparing. Print out documents, organize them chronologically, write a timeline of events. My paralegal friend Dominic came over to help. He'd worked in corporate litigation for 10 years before burning out and becoming a wedding videographer, which is how we'd met. Dominic looked over the lawsuits and shook his head. This is sophisticated work. She's not just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. Every claim is carefully crafted to exploit specific weaknesses in LLC protection laws. If she can prove that you were operating these companies as a single entity rather than separate businesses, She can pierce the corporate veil and go after your personal assets. But I wasn't operating them as a single entity. Each LLC has its own bank account, its own tax returns, its own operating agreements. Do they share employees, office space, equipment? I felt sick. All of my LLCs operated out of my home office. They all used the same equipment. And technically, I was the only employee of all of them, though I contracted out work as needed. She's going to argue that they're alter egos, Dominic said. That you created multiple LLCs not for legitimate business purposes, but to hide assets and avoid liability. It's actually a common tactic in fraud cases. But that's not what I did. I created separate companies because each one serves different markets. Sunset Holdings manages real estate. Blue River Productions does corporate video. Cascade Creative handles weddings. They're separate business lines. Can you prove that to a judge in 5 minutes or less? Because that's probably all the time you'll have tomorrow. We spent the next 4 hours creating a presentation that clearly outlined the business purpose of each LLC, the different client bases, the separate revenue streams. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than showing up with just a stack of papers. At 8 that night, Vanessa called back. I talked to my friend at the U.S. Attorney's Office. He's interested, but he needs more evidence before he can open an official investigation. Wire fraud cases require proving intent, and right now everything could theoretically be explained as a civil dispute. We need something that clearly shows criminal intent. Like what? Like communication between Tessa and your family planning this. Emails, texts, recorded conversations. Something that proves they knew the lawsuits were fraudulent and filed them anyway to destroy your business. I don't have access to their communications. Then we need to get creative. My friend suggested filing a motion to compel discovery in the civil cases. If we can get a judge to order them to turn over communications between Tessa and your family regarding these lawsuits, we might find what we need. The hearing's tomorrow morning. There's no time for motions. Not for tomorrow. But this isn't going to be resolved in one hearing, Martin. This is going to be a long fight. Start thinking strategically about the long game, not just tomorrow. She was right, but I wasn't sure I had the resources for a long game. The legal fees were already piling up. I had 3 attorneys now, one for each jurisdiction, plus my corporate attorney advising in the background. Even with the account freeze lifted, I was burning through cash fast. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about the moment I dropped out of film school. I'd been 2 years into a 4-year program at UCLA, drowning in student debt, taking classes that felt completely disconnected from the actual work I wanted to do. I'd started doing freelance video work on weekends and was making more money in 2 days than most graduates made in a month. Dad had called it the biggest mistake of my life. Mom had cried. Jared had been supportive at first, until he realized I was actually succeeding. Then the comments started. Little digs about real jobs and stability. Jokes about when I was going to get serious about my career. I'd absorbed it all because I thought eventually they'd see I'd made the right choice. I thought success would speak for itself. What I hadn't understood was that my success was threatening to them. It didn't fit the narrative they'd built about their family. Jared was supposed to be the successful one. He had the degree from a good school, the corporate job, the 401k. I was supposed to be the cautionary tale. When that didn't happen, when I quietly built a multi-million-dollar company, it disrupted everything, and Tessa had figured out how to fix that disruption. The hearing was in downtown Seattle, a 2-hour drive from my place. I left at 6 to avoid traffic and ended up sitting in my car in the parking garage for an hour, reviewing my notes. My attorney, Patricia, met me at the courthouse entrance at 8:30. She was a short woman in her 50s with gray hair and the kind of calm confidence that comes from decades of litigation experience. She'd warned me yesterday that Tessa would try to rattle me, that I needed to stay calm no matter what happened. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Tessa was already there with Jared sitting in the gallery behind her. She was younger than I'd thought, maybe early 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. She looked polished and professional in a navy suit. When she saw me, she didn't react at all. Jared, on the other hand, glared at me like I'd personally wronged him, like I was the one who'd uninvited him from a wedding and tried to steal his business. The judge was a middle-aged man with reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked tired already, and it wasn't even 9 yet. He called the case and asked Tessa to present her argument for the restraining order. She stood and launched into a prepared statement. Your Honor, my client has been subjected to months of harassment and threatening behavior from the respondent, Martin Ruth. Mr. Ruth has made numerous unwanted contacts, has threatened to destroy my client's upcoming wedding, and has engaged in a pattern of behavior that my client finds genuinely frightening. We're asking for a temporary restraining order while we prepare for a full hearing on a permanent order. The judge turned to me. Mr. Ruth, you have representation? Patricia stood. Yes, Your Honor. Patricia Chen, appearing for the respondent. Your Honor, Miss Miller's claims are entirely fabricated. Mr. Ruth has made no threats, no unwanted contact, and no harassing behavior. In fact, the opposite is true. Mr. Ruth has been the victim of a coordinated campaign of harassment and business sabotage by Miss Miller and his own family members. That's a serious accusation, Counselor. We have documentation, Your Honor. Patricia handed a packet to the bailiff to give to the judge. These are phone records showing multiple calls from Miss Miller's fiancé to Mr. Ruth, not the other way around. Security camera footage showing the fiancé coming to Mr. Ruth's home uninvited, and communications showing that Miss Miller requested to meet with Mr. Ruth specifically to gather information about his business structure months before these lawsuits were filed. The judge looked through the packet while Tessa remained standing. He frowned and looked up at her. Miss Miller, you're listed as the attorney of record on 17 separate lawsuits filed against various businesses, all owned by Mr. Ruth. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. Those are breach of contract suits on behalf of multiple small business clients, all filed on the same day, all with similar claims. And your fiancé is Mr. Ruth's brother? Yes, but I don't see how that's relevant to this restraining order petition. It's relevant because it suggests this might not be a case of harassment at all, but rather a civil business dispute with family dynamics involved. Miss Miller, has Mr. Ruth ever attempted to contact you directly? Tessa hesitated for just a second. Not directly, no. But the cancellation of wedding services was clearly intended to. So you're seeking a restraining order against someone who has never contacted you, never threatened you, and whose only action was to cancel contracts for services he was paying for. The judge sounded skeptical now. Your Honor, the manner in which those cancellations were made was designed to cause maximum emotional distress, and, Miss Miller, that's not what restraining orders are for. This court doesn't issue protective orders because someone is upset about a business dispute. Your petition is denied. If you have civil claims against Mr. Ruth's businesses, you can pursue those through the appropriate channels. But there's no evidence of harassment or threatening behavior that would warrant a restraining order. Tessa's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Thank you, Your Honor. As we left the courtroom, I heard Jared hiss something at Tessa about how she'd promised this would work. She ignored him and walked quickly toward the elevators. Patricia pulled me aside in the hallway. That went better than expected. She overplayed her hand. But Martin, this isn't over. She's going to come back harder in the civil suits. We bought you some breathing room, but you need to prepare for a fight. What about the other 2 restraining order hearings? I'll handle those by phone now that we have this ruling. Judges talk to each other. The fact that one judge already denied her petition will carry weight. But listen, I've been thinking about Vanessa's suggestion regarding the FBI. I think she's right. This isn't just a civil dispute anymore. Tessa filed 17 fraudulent lawsuits designed to freeze your assets and destroy your business while she and your brother attempted to steal your clients. That's wire fraud, computer fraud, and possibly conspiracy. We should at least consult with a federal prosecutor. How long will that take? To get an investigation opened? Could be months. To see actual charges filed? Could be years. Federal cases move slowly, but the advantage is that once an investigation is opened, it creates pressure. Tessa can't make this go away with settlement money if the feds are involved. And if she did take your corporate documents without permission, that's theft of trade secrets, which is a federal crime. I spent the drive home thinking about what I wanted. Did I want revenge? Justice? To just make this go away? I honestly wasn't sure anymore. 2 days ago, I'd been a successful business owner quietly building an empire. Now I was caught in a legal nightmare that threatened everything I'd worked for. My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway. Unknown number. I normally don't answer those, but something made me pick up. Martin? It was Tessa. I should hang up, but curiosity kept me on the line. What do you want? I want to talk. Off the record. Can we meet somewhere? Absolutely not. Anything you want to say to me, you can say through my attorney. I can make this all go away, Martin. All the lawsuits, all the legal fees. I'll withdraw everything. We can both move on. In exchange for what? In exchange for you not filing a complaint with the Bar Association. I know you've been looking into my professional conduct. I'm asking you, as someone who's about to become your sister-in-law, to let this go. Sister-in-law, I laughed. Tessa, there's no wedding. I canceled all the vendors, remember? That was kind of the whole point. We'll reschedule, get new vendors. But we can't do that if this legal mess is hanging over everything. Jared's parents are already talking about postponing the wedding indefinitely because of the stress. Good. They should cancel it entirely. Save everyone the trouble. Don't be petty, Martin. This isn't about the wedding anymore. This is about family. You tried to destroy my company. I did my job representing clients who had legitimate breach of contract claims. Clients that don't exist. You created shell plaintiffs to file fraudulent lawsuits. I have proof, Tessa, and when I give that proof to the Washington State Bar Association, your legal career is over." She was quiet for a moment. "What do you want?" "I want you to admit what you did. On record. I want a full confession about the lawsuits, the stolen documents, all of it. And then I want you and Jared to leave me alone forever." "That's not going to happen. Then we'll see you in court. Multiple courts, actually." "Oh, and Tessa, I'm recording this call. Washington's a two-party consent state. So I'm letting you know right now that this conversation is being recorded. Do you consent to being recorded?" She hung up. I sat in my car, hands shaking, and sent the recording to Patricia and Vanessa. Patricia called back immediately. That was incredibly stupid and incredibly smart at the same time. Stupid because now she knows you're documenting everything. Smart because she essentially admitted the lawsuits were personal retaliation, not legitimate legal claims. We can use this. Can we use it to get the cases dismissed? Maybe. It depends on the judge. But at minimum, it's evidence of bad faith that will help us with sanctions and fee recovery. Martin, I think it's time to go on offense. Stop playing defense and start hitting back. What did you have in mind? File a countersuit for malicious prosecution, abuse of process, and tortious interference with business relationships. Go after Tessa personally, not just as an attorney representing clients. And file a bar complaint alleging ethics violations. Make her defend herself for once instead of constantly attacking you. Won't that just escalate things? Things are already escalated. She tried to destroy your business, and when that didn't work fast enough, she tried to get restraining orders to cut you off from defending yourself. This woman is not going to stop unless you make her stop, and the only way to do that is to make continuing her attack more painful than backing down. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Do it. File everything. That's when my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "We need to talk about your sister." "My sister?" Vanessa was in Portland, presumably far from this mess. "What about her?" "She's been spreading lies about our family, telling people that we stole your business documents and conspired with Tessa to hurt you. She needs to stop, Martin. This family can't take any more drama." I called Mom directly. She answered on the first ring. "Before you say anything," I told her, "you should know I'm recording this call and you're on speakerphone with my attorney present." There was a long pause. "Martin, that's unnecessary." "Is it? Because it seems like every conversation with this family ends with me getting screwed somehow. So humor me. What lies has Vanessa been spreading?" "They're not lies. That's the problem. She's telling the truth and it's making us look bad." "You mean it's making you look bad because you actually did steal my business documents and give them to Tessa?" "I didn't steal anything. I borrowed some papers to help your brother understand your business better. He was curious about how you structured things, since he's thinking about starting his own company." "So you admit you took my confidential business documents without permission and gave them to Jared?" "I was trying to help the family. Jared wanted to learn from your success. By having his fiancée use that information to file fraudulent lawsuits against me? Those lawsuits are not fraudulent. You canceled wedding services that multiple people were counting on. There are real damages. From contracts I paid for services I own. You can't breach a contract with yourself, Mom. And you know what the really sad part is? I was doing all of this to be nice. I paid for Jared's entire wedding because I wanted him to have a special day without financial stress. I did it anonymously through shell companies because I knew you'd never accept help from your failure, son. And instead of appreciating it, you all decided to destroy me. We didn't destroy anything. You're being dramatic. My business accounts were frozen, Mom. I almost couldn't make payroll for 60 employees. People with families who depend on those jobs. All because Tessa filed 17 strategic lawsuits designed to cripple my company. And she could only do that because you gave her my corporate documents. I heard Dad's voice in the background. "Linda, hang up the phone." Mom's voice got quiet. "I'm sorry you feel hurt, Martin, but you hurt us first by canceling the wedding. We've already sent out invitations. People are planning to travel, and you destroyed all of that because of some family disagreement. I didn't cancel the wedding over a disagreement. I canceled it after you uninvited me and tried to steal $50,000 from me. There's a difference. That money was a gift. A gift that you specifically asked to keep after uninviting me. That's not a gift, Mom, that's theft. I think we're done talking. You're clearly not in a rational headspace right now. When you're ready to apologize to your brother and make this right, you know where to find us." She hung up. Patricia had been listening to the whole thing. "I'm sorry, Martin. I know that couldn't have been easy. It was easier than I thought it would be. I think I'm finally understanding that these people don't care about me. They never did. I was useful when they thought I was a failure because it made them feel better about themselves. And I'm useful now because I have money they can access. But they don't actually care about me as a person. For what it's worth, I think you're handling this remarkably well. I don't feel like I'm handling it well. I feel like I'm barely holding it together. That's normal. You're dealing with a lot. But Martin, here's what I want you to focus on. In 1 week, you went from being completely blindsided to understanding the full scope of what's happening, getting your accounts unfrozen, defeating a restraining order, and gathering evidence for multiple legal actions. That's not barely holding it together. That's being effective under pressure. She was trying to make me feel better, but all I felt was tired. So what happens next? Next, we file the countersuit. We file the bar complaint. We notify the FBI through my contact at the U.S. Attorney's Office. And then we wait to see how Tessa responds. My guess is she'll try to negotiate a settlement once she realizes she's facing potential criminal charges and disbarment. And if she doesn't, then we bury her in discovery requests and depositions until she either gives up or we get the evidence we need to prove criminal intent. Either way, you win. It just depends on how long she wants to drag this out. I spent the next 3 days working with Patricia and her paralegal team to prepare the countersuit. We documented every single fraudulent claim in Tessa's lawsuits, every instance of misrepresentation, every bit of evidence showing she'd filed in bad faith. The bar complaint was even more detailed. We argued that Tessa had violated multiple rules of professional conduct by filing frivolous lawsuits, making false statements to the court, failing to disclose her personal relationship with the named plaintiffs in the suits, and using confidential information obtained through improper means. Vanessa called on Friday. I have news. My prosecutor friend agreed to open a preliminary inquiry into the matter. He's not calling it a full investigation yet, but he's assigned an FBI agent to review the evidence and determine if there's enough for a formal case. That's good, right? It's a start. The agent's name is Diana Ortega. She specializes in white-collar crime, specifically corporate fraud and identity theft. I gave her your contact information. She'll probably reach out next week. Agent Ortega called me on Monday. Mr. Ruth, I've reviewed the materials your sister provided. I'd like to meet with you to discuss the matter in more detail. Would you be available tomorrow afternoon? I met her at a federal building in downtown Seattle. She was younger than I expected, maybe late 30s, with dark hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. We sat in a small conference room with gray walls and fluorescent lighting. Tell me about the shell companies, she said without preamble. I explained how I'd set up the LLCs over the past 2 years as I'd expanded from just video production into related services. How each company served a specific purpose and had its own clients, its own revenue streams. How I'd never tried to hide anything from the IRS or misrepresent what I was doing. And these LLCs all happened to be the vendors for your brother's wedding? I planned it that way. I wanted to give him the perfect wedding without him knowing I was paying for it. I knew if he found out, he'd either refuse or my parents would make it weird. So I created companies that looked independent, but were actually all mine. That's an unusual approach to giving a gift. My family is complicated. I thought I was doing something nice. Turns out I was setting myself up to be exploited. Agent Ortega made notes on a legal pad. And Tessa Miller knew about these shell companies when she filed the lawsuits? She had to. The lawsuits are too specific. She knew the corporate structure, the registered agents, the exact formation dates. That's not information you can find through public searches. Someone gave her my internal documents. Your mother. That's what I believe, yes. My mom had access to my home office for about 2 hours unsupervised. All my corporate documents were in an unlocked filing cabinet. Why didn't you lock it? Because it's my home. I didn't think I needed to protect my business documents from my own mother. Agent Ortega looked up at me. Mr. Ruth, I'm going to be straight with you. What you're describing could be wire fraud, computer fraud, and conspiracy. Those are serious federal crimes, but they're also very hard to prove. I need direct evidence that Miss Miller knew the lawsuits were fraudulent when she filed them. Intent is everything in these cases. I have a recorded phone call where she offered to make all the lawsuits go away if I didn't file a bar complaint. Doesn't that show she knew they were fraudulent? It shows she wanted to avoid professional consequences. That's not quite the same thing as proving she knowingly filed false claims. Defense attorneys will argue she was just trying to resolve a dispute, not admitting to criminal conduct. So what do I need? I need communications between Tessa and your family members that show they planned this together. Emails, texts, anything that demonstrates a coordinated scheme to use the legal system to destroy your business. If your mother took those documents specifically so Tessa could file these lawsuits, and if they discussed this plan in advance, that's conspiracy. How do I get that? You don't. I do. If I open a formal investigation, I can subpoena phone records, emails, text messages, but I need enough probable cause first to convince a federal judge to issue those subpoenas. What you've given me so far is suggestive, but it's not quite there yet. What would get you there? More victims. If we can show this is a pattern of behavior, not just a one-time family dispute, that changes everything. Has Tessa done anything like this before? I don't know. I barely knew her before all this started. Then that's your homework. Find out who Tessa Miller has represented in the past. Look for other cases where she filed multiple related lawsuits against a single defendant. Look for bar complaints, sanctions, anything that suggests this isn't the first time she's abused the legal system for personal gain. I spent that entire week becoming an expert on Tessa Miller's legal career. She'd been practicing for 7 years, all at mid-size firms in Seattle. Her specialty was business litigation, specifically breach of contract cases. What I found was concerning. In the past 3 years, she'd filed over 200 lawsuits. That's an unusually high number for a single attorney. More interesting, about 40% of those cases were voluntarily dismissed within 6 months of filing. I called Agent Ortega. I think I found something. Tell me. Tessa files a lot of lawsuits that never go anywhere. She files, the defendant scrambles to respond and hires expensive attorneys, then she dismisses the case before it goes to trial. It's a pattern. That could just be strategic litigation. File strong cases, settle when you get a good offer, move on to the next one. Except the cases she dismisses aren't the ones where she's getting settlements. I found court records. Most of her voluntary dismissals come without any settlement agreement on file. She's just dropping the cases. That's unusual. Why would an attorney voluntarily dismiss cases without getting anything for their client? Unless the point isn't to win the cases. The point is to drain the defendant's resources. File a lawsuit, freeze their assets, force them to spend money on legal defense, then drop it before you have to actually prove anything. The defendant is out tens of thousands in legal fees, and you move on to the next target. If you can prove that's what she's doing, that's a pattern of abuse of process. That's exactly what I need for probable cause. Send me everything you found. I sent Agent Ortega 42 case files where Tessa had filed suit, the defendant had responded, and then Tessa had voluntarily dismissed without settlement. In 30 of those cases, the defendants were small businesses. In 15 cases, the defendant had filed for bankruptcy within a year of the dismissal. Agent Ortega called me back 2 days later. We're opening a formal investigation. I'll be requesting subpoenas for Miss Miller's communications, phone records, and case files. This is going to take time, Mr. Ruth. Months, possibly longer. Are you prepared for that? I've already been dealing with this for weeks. What's a few more months? The difference is that now you're not alone. We're on this. And Mr. Ruth, you should know that if we find what I think we're going to find, Tessa Miller is looking at serious prison time. Wire fraud carries up to 20 years. Conspiracy adds more. This isn't just going to end her legal career. This is going to end her freedom. That should have made me feel better. But mostly I just felt sad. This whole thing started because I wanted to do something nice for my brother. And now it had escalated to federal investigations and potential prison sentences. The countersuit and bar complaint were filed the following Monday. Tessa's response was immediate. She called Patricia directly. Your client is making a huge mistake. These filings are defamatory and I'll be adding defamation to my claims against him. Patricia was ready for that. You're welcome to try, but truth is an absolute defense to defamation. Everything in our complaint is documented and provable. And speaking of documentation, you should know that the FBI has opened an investigation into your litigation practices. I'd suggest you retain criminal counsel. There was a long pause. Patricia told me later that she could actually hear Tessa breathing on the other end of the line. This is because of Vanessa, isn't it? She's the one who pushed this to the feds. This is because you filed 17 fraudulent lawsuits in a coordinated attempt to destroy someone's business while conspiring with family members to steal confidential corporate documents. Vanessa just helped connect the dots. I have prosecutorial discretion as an attorney. My litigation strategy is protected. Not when your litigation strategy constitutes wire fraud. Patricia sounded almost cheerful. You've really stepped in it this time, Tessa. You could have just helped your fiancé plan a nice wedding. Instead, you tried to commit corporate sabotage, and now you're facing federal charges. We'll see about that. Yes, we will. Oh, and Tessa, you might want to check your firm's malpractice insurance policy. I'm guessing there's an exclusion for intentional misconduct, which means if we prove these lawsuits were filed in bad faith, your firm won't cover your defense costs. You'll be paying out of pocket. Just something to think about. Tessa hung up. The next day, 16 of the 17 lawsuits were voluntarily dismissed. The only one that remained was the original Venue case for $275,000, presumably because dismissing all of them would look too much like an admission of guilt. Patricia filed an immediate motion for sanctions, arguing that the voluntary dismissals proved the cases had been filed in bad faith. She requested attorney's fees, costs, and punitive damages for vexatious litigation. The hearing on that motion was scheduled for 3 weeks out. In the meantime, I tried to get back to some semblance of normal life. I had clients to serve, projects to complete, employees who were wondering what the hell was going on with all the legal drama. My lead editor, Felipe, pulled me aside one afternoon. "Boss, is the company in trouble? People are worried about job security. The company is fine. This is all personal stuff that got mixed up with business. Nobody's losing their jobs. Is it true your family tried to destroy the business?" News travels fast. Yeah, it's true. My brother's fiancée filed a bunch of fake lawsuits to try to freeze our accounts and force us to shut down. That's messed up. Why would she do that? Because she could. Because she thought I was weak enough that I wouldn't fight back. She was wrong. Felipe nodded. "If you need anything, the crew's got your back. We all know what you've built here. We're not going to let some lawyer destroy it." I appreciated that more than he knew. Jared called me that night. First time I'd heard from him directly since the courthouse confrontation. I almost didn't answer, but I was curious what he'd say. "Martin." His voice was different, quieter. "The wedding's off." "I know. I canceled all the vendors, remember?" "No. I mean off completely. Tessa and I broke up. Or she broke up with me. I don't even know at this point." I didn't say anything. I honestly didn't know what to say. She told me she filed all those lawsuits to help me start a business. She said once your company collapsed, I could buy up your equipment and clients for cheap and launch my own production company. She made it sound like she was doing me a favor. She was doing herself a favor. She was destroying a competitor while looking like a supportive fiancé. You were just the excuse. I didn't know, Martin. I swear I didn't know she was going to do all that. I thought she was just going to help us negotiate some kind of agreement where you'd mentor me or something. Jared, you uninvited me from your wedding and tried to keep $50,000 of my money. Don't pretend you're innocent in all this. That was Mom's idea. She said you'd been bragging about how much money you make and that you owed the family for all the support we gave you over the years. I just went along with it because I thought she was right. I never bragged about anything. I worked quietly and built a company. The only reason you know what I make is because Mom snooped through my office. He was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry. I really am. I was jealous, okay? You dropped out of school and somehow everything worked out for you. Meanwhile, I'm doing everything right. The degree, the corporate job, the career track, and I'm barely making ends meet. It wasn't fair. Life's not fair, Jared. But that doesn't mean you get to tear down the people who are succeeding. It means you figure out why you're not succeeding and fix it. I know. Tessa's lawyer called her yesterday. Something about a federal investigation. She completely freaked out. Started screaming about how this was all your fault, how you'd ruined her life. I told her she ruined her own life by filing fake lawsuits. She threw a lamp at me. Actually threw a lamp. That's when I realized this whole thing had gotten completely insane. What do you want from me, Jared? I don't know. Forgiveness? Understanding? Some kind of guarantee that you're not going to press charges against me, too? I can't forgive you yet. Maybe someday, but not now. The trust is gone. As for charges, that depends on what the FBI finds. If you were actively involved in planning this scheme, then yeah, you're probably going to face consequences. If you were just a useful idiot who went along with whatever Mom and Tessa told you, you might be okay. I wasn't trying to hurt you, but you did hurt me. And you would have done a lot worse if I hadn't caught it early. So forgive me if I'm not ready to give you a pass just because things didn't work out the way you planned. He hung up without saying goodbye. Mom called 10 minutes later. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message saying she'd heard Jared and Tessa broke up and it was all my fault for overreacting to a simple misunderstanding. She wanted me to call Tessa and tell her to drop the federal investigation so the family could move on. I deleted the message without responding. The sanctions hearing happened on a Wednesday morning in early November. The courtroom was packed, which was unusual for a civil motion hearing. Apparently, word had gotten around the local legal community that a prominent attorney was being accused of filing fraudulent lawsuits. Tessa sat at the defense table with 2 attorneys from her firm. She looked smaller somehow, like the confidence had been physically drained out of her. She didn't look at me when I walked in. The judge was the same one who denied her restraining order petition. He remembered, "I've reviewed the motions and the voluntary dismissals. Miss Miller, can you explain to me why 16 of your 17 lawsuits were dismissed within days of the defendant filing a countersuit for malicious prosecution?" Tessa stood. "Your Honor, as the litigation developed, it became clear that the claims were not as strong as initially believed. In the interest of judicial economy and my client's resources, I advised them to dismiss all 16 cases? On the same day? You didn't notice these cases were weak until the defendant fought back? The timing was coincidental, Your Honor." The judge looked skeptical. Miss Miller, I've been on the bench for 18 years. I've seen a lot of litigation tactics. This isn't a timing coincidence. This is an attorney realizing she's about to be exposed for filing frivolous claims and trying to make the problem disappear before it gets worse. Your Honor, I object to that characterization. Your objection is noted and overruled. Miss Miller, did you or did you not have access to Mr. Ruth's confidential corporate documents when you filed these lawsuits? I had information provided to me by a family member who had legitimate access to those documents. Mrs. Linda Ruth, who took documents from her son's private office without his knowledge or permission. That's theft, Miss Miller, and using stolen documents to file lawsuits is abuse of process. We had good faith belief that the claims were valid, based on documents you knew were improperly obtained. That's not good faith, that's willful misconduct. The judge looked down at his notes. I'm granting the defendant's motion for sanctions. Miss Miller, you are personally responsible for paying Mr. Ruth's attorney's fees and costs for defending all 17 lawsuits. Additionally, I'm awarding $50,000 in punitive damages for vexatious litigation, and I'm referring this matter to the Washington State Bar Association for disciplinary proceedings. Tessa went pale. Your Honor, that's what happens when you abuse the legal system for personal vendettas. You're an officer of this court, Miss Miller. You have a responsibility to file claims in good faith. You failed that responsibility spectacularly. Anything else from counsel? Patricia stood. Your Honor, we'd also request that the remaining lawsuit be dismissed with prejudice. Granted. All cases dismissed with prejudice. Miss Miller, you'll have 30 days to pay the sanctions and attorney's fees. If payment is not received, we'll proceed with collection proceedings. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down and Tessa just sat there, staring at the table. Her attorneys were already packing up their briefcases, clearly wanting nothing more to do with this mess. As I walked out of the courthouse, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. It was actually over. The lawsuits were gone. The sanctions were ordered. The bar complaint was filed. Tessa was going to face consequences for what she'd done. My phone rang as I got to my car. Agent Ortega. Mr. Ruth, I wanted to let you know we've executed the subpoenas. We have Miss Miller's phone records, email accounts, and case files. We also have text messages between your mother and your brother discussing the scheme. It's extensive. Can you tell me what they said? I can tell you that your theory was correct. Your mother took your documents specifically so Tessa could file the lawsuits. They discussed it in detail over text message. Your mother even joked about teaching you a lesson about respect. And Mr. Ruth, your brother knew. He was in on it from the beginning. I sat in my car, hands on the steering wheel, processing that. My own mother and brother had conspired to destroy my business because I canceled a wedding they'd uninvited me from. The cruelty of it was stunning. What happens now? Now we build the case. I'll be presenting evidence to a federal grand jury within the next month. If they return indictments, we'll move forward with criminal charges. Wire fraud, conspiracy, theft of trade secrets, potentially computer fraud depending on how they accessed your files. All three of them? Mom, Jared, and Tessa? That's up to the grand jury and the prosecutors. But based on what I've seen, yes. All three of them engaged in criminal conduct. The fact that their family doesn't give them a pass. I drove home in a daze. Everything I'd worked for over the past 8 years had almost been destroyed by my own family. And for what? Pride? Jealousy? Some twisted need to prove I was still the failure they wanted me to be? Vanessa called that evening. I heard about the hearing. Sanctions and a bar referral. That's huge. Martin. Agent Ortega said they have text messages. Mom and Jared planned this together with Tessa. I'm not surprised. I'm sorry, but I'm not surprised. This family has been toxic for years. You were just too loyal to see it. What do I do now? You move on. You let the legal system handle them. You focus on your business and your life. And Martin, you accept that some people, even people who are supposed to love you, are just broken in ways you can't fix. She was right, but it hurt. It hurt more than the lawsuits, more than the frozen accounts, more than any of the financial damage. Knowing my family had tried to destroy me hurt in a way I couldn't quite articulate. The next few weeks were quiet. I threw myself into work, taking on new clients, expanding into markets I'd been too busy to explore before. My employees were happy to see me focused and engaged again rather than distracted by legal drama. Patricia called with updates as they came in. The Bar Association had opened a formal investigation into Tessa. Her firm had quietly asked her to resign, which she did. Her name was removed from the firm website within 24 hours. Jared lost his job. Apparently, his employer didn't appreciate being associated with someone involved in a corporate sabotage scheme. Mom and Dad's friends started asking questions. The small-town rumor mill was brutal. I didn't feel good about any of it. I didn't feel vindicated or satisfied. I just felt tired and sad. In December, Agent Ortega called with the news. The grand jury returned indictments, all three of them: Tessa Miller, Jared Ruth, and Linda Ruth. Wire fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and theft of trade secrets. They'll be arraigned next week. What's the likely outcome? If they're convicted, Tessa's looking at 10 to 15 years. She had the most direct involvement, and she's a lawyer, which means judges tend to throw the book at attorneys who abuse the system. Your brother is probably looking at 5 to 7 years. Your mother might get off lighter since she's older and this is her first offense. Maybe 3 to 5 years? I felt sick. 3 people I'd grown up with were going to prison. And yes, they'd done terrible things to me. Yes, they deserved consequences, but they were still family. Vanessa flew down for the arraignment. We sat in the back of the federal courtroom and watched as Tessa, Jared, and Mom were brought in one by one. They each pleaded not guilty. Bail was set at $100,000 each, which none of them could afford. They were remanded to custody pending trial. As they were let out, Mom looked back and saw me. The expression on her face wasn't anger or defiance. It was fear. Pure, simple fear. "How do you feel?" Vanessa asked as we left the courthouse. "I don't know. Like I won, but everything still feels broken." That's because winning isn't the same as healing. You stop them from destroying you, but you can't stop them from having tried. That damage is done regardless of how the legal stuff turns out. She was right. Again. Patricia called a week later with news that Tessa's attorney had approached her about a plea deal. Tessa would plead guilty to 1 count of conspiracy, testify against Jared and Mom, and serve 18 months in federal prison followed by 3 years of supervised release. She'd also be permanently disbarred. Does she have anything useful to testify about? She has everything. Text messages, phone calls, meetings where they planned the whole thing. Apparently, your mother was the mastermind. She approached Tessa 6 months before the wedding with the idea of using the wedding cancellation as an excuse to file the lawsuits. Tessa saw an opportunity to take out a competitor and agreed. Jared went along because he thought he'd inherit your business. They really believed I'd just roll over and let it happen. They believed you were the person they'd convinced themselves you were. A failed dropout who got lucky but didn't have the spine to fight back. They underestimated you completely. The federal prosecutors offered Jared a similar deal. Plead guilty, testify, serve 2 years. He took it. Mom refused to plead and demanded a trial, which surprised no one who knew her. The trial was set for March. I didn't attend most of it. I let Patricia handle updates, but I did go for the closing arguments. The prosecutor was a woman in her 40s named Rachel Vance. She was methodical and thorough, walking the jury through months of planning, stolen documents, fake lawsuits, frozen accounts. She showed them the text messages where Mom called me spoiled and lazy. She showed them Tessa's emails to competitors trying to poach my clients while my accounts were frozen. And she showed them the impact. The employees who almost missed mortgage payments because payroll was delayed. The clients who lost trust in my company because of rumors about financial instability. The damage to my credit rating from the lawsuits. The nearly $250,000 in legal fees I'd incurred, defending myself. Mom's attorney tried to argue that she was just a concerned mother trying to help her son's relationship, that she didn't understand the legal implications of what she was doing, that she'd been manipulated by Tessa. The jury didn't buy it. They deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. Sentencing was 2 months later. Tessa got 18 months as negotiated in her plea deal. Jared got 24 months. Mom got 48 months plus 3 years, supervised release plus restitution of $412,000 to cover my legal fees and business losses. I watched them all get led away in handcuffs and I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication, not even sadness anymore. Just nothing. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked if I had any comment. I said no and walked to my car. Vanessa was waiting there. "You okay?" "I will be. Eventually. What are you going to do now?" "I'm going to run my company. I'm going to take care of my employees. I'm going to live my life. And I'm going to try really hard not to become bitter about all of this." "Good plan." She hugged me. "I'm proud of you, you know. You could have rolled over. You could have let them destroy you. But you fought back and you won. That takes courage. Or stubbornness. Sometimes they're the same thing." I drove home that evening and did something I hadn't done in months. I opened a bottle of wine, put on some music, and worked on a personal video project. Not a client project, not something for the business. Just something creative and fun that reminded me why I got into this industry in the first place. My phone buzzed with messages from old high school friends who'd heard about the sentencing. They all said some version of the same thing. That I'd done the right thing holding my family accountable. That they were sorry this had happened to me. I appreciated the sentiment, but I knew the truth. I hadn't held them accountable because it was the right thing to do. I'd held them accountable because it was the only thing I could do. If I'd let them get away with it, if I'd just accepted the role of family disappointment and moved on, they'd have destroyed everything I'd built. And more importantly, I'd have destroyed myself. I'd have internalized their narrative that I was less than, that I didn't deserve success, that my accomplishments were somehow illegitimate because I didn't follow their prescribed path. That night, for the first time in months, I slept through till morning without waking up with anxiety. The legal battle was over. The family drama was resolved, if you could call prison sentences a resolution, and I was still standing. Battered and exhausted, but standing. In June, almost a year after the original wedding date, I got a letter from Tessa. She was 4 months into her sentence at a federal prison in California. The letter was surprisingly honest. She apologized for everything. She explained that she'd been struggling financially and saw an opportunity to make money by helping a client, my mother, while also taking out a business competitor. She said she'd convinced herself it was just aggressive litigation, not criminal activity. She said she'd been wrong and she was sorry. I read the letter twice and then filed it away. I didn't respond. I couldn't find it in myself to offer forgiveness yet, and I wasn't going to lie and say I did. Jared wrote too, a few weeks later. His letter was less apologetic and more self-pitying. He talked about how unfair it was that his life was ruined over a misunderstanding, how he'd just been trying to better himself, how I could have been more understanding. I threw that letter away without finishing it. Mom never wrote. According to Vanessa, who occasionally checked in with Dad, Mom still believed she'd been in the right and that I'd overreacted. She apparently told other inmates that her ungrateful son had sent her to prison for trying to help the family. Some people never learn. In September, a full year after the initial call from Renee, I was doing editing work at my home studio when my doorbell rang. I checked the camera. A young woman I didn't recognize was standing there with a clipboard. I opened the door. "Can I help you?" "Hi, are you Martin Ruth? I'm Lydia from Perfect Day Planning. I'm Renee's replacement. She left the company earlier this year. I was going through old files and found a note about a wedding cancellation with your name on it. I just wanted to follow up and see if you'd like to rebook any of those services. We have some great packages available." I actually stared at her for a moment before I started laughing. Not bitter laughter, just genuine amusement at the absurdity of it all. "No, thank you. I'm all set with weddings for a while." "Oh, okay. Well, if you change your mind, here's my card." She handed me a business card and left. I looked down at it. Perfect Day Planning. We make your dreams come true. I tossed the card in the recycling bin and went back to work. That's the thing about life. It just keeps moving forward whether you're ready or not. The legal drama becomes yesterday's news. The family betrayal becomes just another story you tell sometimes. The business keeps growing. New clients come in. New projects launch. By December, I'd expanded into documentary work, landed 2 major contracts with streaming services, and hired 15 more employees. My company was bigger and more successful than ever, and I'd done it all while my family was trying to tear me down. On New Year's Eve, Vanessa called. "How are you doing?" "I'm good. Actually good. Not just saying it. I'm glad. You've been through hell this year." "Yeah, but I made it through. And I learned some things." "Like what?" "Like success isn't about making everyone happy. It's about building something you're proud of regardless of what other people think. Like family isn't defined by blood, it's defined by who shows up when things get hard. And like the best revenge isn't destruction, it's living well despite everything." That's surprisingly wise for someone who spent most of this year in legal battles. I had a lot of time to think while sitting in courtrooms. "What are your plans for next year?" "More of the same. Build the business. Take on interesting projects. Maybe travel a bit. I've been thinking about taking a real vacation for the first time in years." "You've earned it." We talked for another hour, catching up on her life in Portland, her work, her new relationship, normal sibling conversation. The kind of thing I used to take for granted. When I hung up, I looked around my home studio. At the awards on the wall, the equipment I'd carefully selected and purchased, the projects in progress on my monitors. This was mine. I'd built it from nothing, despite everyone telling me I was making a mistake, despite my family actively trying to destroy it. And I was proud of that. Not in an arrogant way, but in a quiet, satisfied way. I'd proven to myself that I could handle the worst and come out okay on the other side. My phone buzzed with a text from Felipe. "Happy New Year, boss. Thanks for being the kind of leader who fights for his people. We've got your back." I smiled and typed back, "Thanks, man. Here's to a drama-free 2025. But as I sent the message, I knew there was no such thing as drama-free. Life would keep throwing challenges. Business would have ups and downs. There would be new crises and new conflicts. The difference was that now I knew I could handle it. I'd faced my own family trying to destroy me, and I'd survived. Everything else was manageable in comparison. I poured myself a glass of whiskey and toasted to the year ahead, to whatever came next, to the family I'd chosen rather than the one I'd been born into, to the business I'd built and the life I'd created on my own terms, and to the knowledge that sometimes the best revenge really is just living well, succeeding despite the obstacles, and refusing to let anyone else's toxicity define your worth. The clock struck midnight, and fireworks erupted outside my window. I watched them for a while, colorful explosions lighting up the winter sky, and thought about how much had changed in a year, how much I'd changed. I wasn't the same person who'd gotten that call from Renee 12 months ago. That person had still believed family meant something inherent and unchangeable. That person had thought success would eventually win over his parents. That person had been naive about human nature and the depths people will sink to when threatened by someone else's achievements. This new person, the one watching fireworks alone on New Year's Eve, understood that some relationships are toxic no matter how much you want them to work. That blood relation doesn't obligate you to accept abuse. That protecting yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. I finished my whiskey and went to bed, ready for whatever the next year would bring. The legal battles were over. The family drama had reached its conclusion, and I was free to build the life I wanted without looking over my shoulder waiting for the next betrayal.